So, happy morning, good morning, glorious morning. This is open level yoga happening at 11:15 a.m. Eastern Standard Time to 12:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time every Wednesday here via Third Group Online. My name is Kiki. My pronouns are she and they. If you're joining on the recording, it would be super duper useful to have blocks today. Or some kind of block-like object, so thick book, a couple thick boxes, something of the sort. As always, having a blanket or something for your knees is always really useful. Any other blocks you might have would be anything that helps support you and your body for practice. Anything that you might want to like lounge upon when we get to Shavasana if you're feeling like you want to get really lush. So you can gather all of those items. And we'll start. This is Neela. She joins us for class usually. We're actually going to start reclined too. So go ahead and grab the blocks that you do have. And we're going to start in Supta Badakanasana, which is reclined Badakanasana. So just have your blocks in hand, and then you can come to lie all the way on your back. Bring the soles of your feet together, and you're going to let your knees open to the sides, but bring your blocks underneath your knees. And that could be on any level. So if you're really open in the hips, the smallest, shortest level might feel fine. I really enjoy the medium height myself. Or maybe it feels extra tight and you actually need the blocks on the highest level if you're tall enough. But you want to feel supportive. We're not really going for an inner thigh stretch right now. We really are just inviting like the energetics of the opening of the inner thighs. And then from there, you're welcome to rest your hands either on the body or away from the body. I really enjoy palms down on my body when I'm feeling like I need to ground a little bit. Usually if I'm feeling anxious, this kind of brings me into a space like reminding myself of my like very physical body, my earth quality. Or if you're feeling a little sluggish, maybe you're trying to invite some energy into your day, you might just bring your hands on either side of the body with the palms up. So there's this sense of the palms inviting or bringing energy in. But of course, any other variation that feels good for you, I completely invite. And that is true for all things throughout the next hour and some change. Right, we're all here gathering in this communal digital space, but the way that you engage with it, first and foremost, is to honor yourself, to honor your body and your being, and to do so in community. So making any adjustments throughout class that you need, choosing to take different variations or choosing to not do what's offered at all, if that's what suits you best. So while you're lounging here, I'm going to speak for a little bit, and I really encourage you to just let yourself be soft. Really sense the blocks underneath the legs. And that, again, energetic, continual opening of the hips, the inner thighs, and the legs. So I'm feeling inspired to work with the inner thighs this week. I recently just came back from teaching movement at a teen mindfulness retreat in Massachusetts. And the organization is called Inward Bound Mindfulness Education. And I could speak for the entire length of class about how incredible and inspirational and like mind-blowing it was to see these teens practicing mindfulness and meditation in the way that they do. But that's not what you're here for. But what I was really impressed about, one of the things I was really impressed about was the container that was created. So the container is sort of like the community expectations, the sort of guidelines that everyone agrees to live and be under. And it's interesting, this word container, right? Because it has that smaller word contain. And you see that a little bit too in the word bound, right? So they're called inward bound mindfulness. Bound is such an interesting word because on the one hand, it connotes boundaries and limitations, right? So it has that same sense of containment. But on the other hand, bound also means to like leap forward with gusto, right? You can sort of imagine like legs splaying out, someone like leaping very generously over a huge puddle. And so I've been kind of like feeling into this interesting play of words, and not dichotomy, but this sense that sometimes containment or boundaries, I'll say sometimes, because I can't speak for all experiences at this point, really actually allow a greater sense of freedom. So if you've ever practiced meditation before, oftentimes you start with a single focal point. You give yourself one single focal point to kind of rest your attention on. And the reason for that is because without it, the mind will just naturally ping pong all over the place, all willy-nilly as it does. And so we give it a single point to rest on. And while that might seem at sometimes like that sense again of that boundary or limitation happening, we also start to find a greater freedom in our own mind, because eventually it leads to choice. Instead of the brain and the mind kind of aimlessly on its own shifting all over, we then get to choose where we're directing our attention. We're choosing how long it stays there. And so through that containment, so to speak, through those boundaries, we then gain a greater sense of freedom. So then we are here, right? Feeling our adductor muscles, ADD. You can think of them or remember them because they bring in the muscles. So if your legs are spread far apart as they are now, the adductor muscles are what bring them together. And you'll be feeling and exploring a lot of that today. And the adductor muscles kind of help contain the legs, particularly when we're walking and running. Without them, the legs would sort of just be flailing. It helps to stabilize the legs. And also works with the hips to help stabilize as well. And it's slightly up for debate, but there are around 5 muscles that help with adducting. I've also heard that there are 6, but I can't say for sure. So we're going to explore this sense of finding containment, finding that inward looking or inward pulling energy within the physical body, and noticing what kind of freedoms that allows in the body. So if you haven't already, start to let the breath deepen. If it feels good for you, you might let the mouth open on the exhale, really sensing a softness in the jaw. And for the last 3 rounds of deep breathing, feel the exhale and let the legs open and open and open. After your 3rd exhale, you might let the mouth close if that's available, and just breathe in and out of the nose. And then see what it's like. If you need to use the hands, you can, but see what it's like to very slowly start to draw the knees together and bring the feet flat on the ground. And you might start to feel the inner thighs working. First time we're using our adductors in class today. Coming all the way to bring the feet flat. And then just to gather our collective energies in this class space, this practice space together, let's take one Om. You can do so just as you are. You're welcome to, again, bring the hands onto the body. Sometimes feeling that vibration can be really grounding as well. Take an exhale whenever you're ready to exhale, breathing in after for one Om. If you are able, go ahead and reach for one of your blocks. And keeping the feet flat, bring the block in between the legs, in between the thighs. If you're able to have your feet about hips distance apart, that's really lovely. If you need to widen them because the block is thicker, that's also fine. And then just stay here, back on the earth, feet grounded, and sense the inner thighs hugging in towards the block. So that inward moving is we're hugging in towards what's called the medial line. And when I think of medial, it kind of reminds me of middle. So it's sort of as the middle part of the body, as if you were to cut the body in half vertically. So we're drawing in towards that medial line, towards the middle. And we're just breathing there, just feeling a sense. You might also already feel a bit of slight burning or maybe vibration happening in the legs. You might also feel the hamstrings and parts of the gluteus start to activate as well. And then holding onto the block with the inner thighs, bring the palms face down. And with an in-breath, press into the feet, lift the hips up towards bridge pose, continuing to sense the inner thighs inward. Holding the hips high, breathe wide into the front of your hip flexors. If you sense the big toes sort of shifting away from the ground, see what it's like to re-engage the big toe mound onto the earth. So remaining grounded here, feeling the inner thighs draw inwards for one more breath in. Exhale, slowly release the back towards the ground again. Just resting with the back on the earth. Hold on to the block that's in between your legs. And again, just let the legs open to either side. So you don't have to go to full Badakanasana, but we're just sensing what it is to fully release the muscle down. Legs open to the sides. And then let's try that again. Start to bring the feet flat, knees towards the sky. Place the block on the inner thighs, and again, hug the legs in. So draw the inner thighs towards that medial line. Palms down, root the toes into the floor. And when you're ready, inhale the hips up away from the earth. If you'd like, you can interlace your fingers behind your back and wiggle those shoulders behind you, opening up through the collarbones, the sternum in the front of the chest. So really feeling spacious through the front of the body. And continuing actively to draw the inner thighs in, abducting the legs any tension that's starting to activate on its own in the face, the jaw, anywhere that's not needed. See if you can take a breath to soften it. And then slowly, if you have the hands clasped behind your back, let that go. And then slowly release the spine all the way down. Take the block away from your inner thighs, but then tiptoe your feet together so that the big toes touch and the inner thighs come in. And then with the inner thighs hugged in towards each other, stretch the legs up towards the sky. Flex both of your feet. Bring the inner thighs in. So now the inner thighs are touching, maybe the inner knee, maybe the inner ankle or big toes, squeezing in towards each other. And then feeling the energy and sensation of the inner thighs hugging in, slowly start to drop your right leg towards the floor. But what is it like to drop the right leg towards the floor, but still sense the inner thighs hugging in towards each other? Inhale the right leg back up slowly. You might notice this also engages the abdominals a little bit, so drawing the belly button down towards the floor. Inhale, slowly release the left leg down. Feel the inner thighs hugging in. And then as you exhale next, slowly lifting the left. Let's find a little bit of internal rotation here, which often happens naturally when we think of bringing the inner thighs inwards. So look up towards your feet, legs are extended. See what it's like to bring your big toes towards each other, but to send your heels away from each other. Just a couple of inches, it doesn't have to be super dramatic. You can even use your hands on your thighs to kind of turn the legs in if that's helpful. And then keep the left leg up slowly, inner thighs hugging in, right leg goes down on the in-breath. And as you exhale, bring the right leg up, low belly stays relaxed, shoulders deep into the earth. Inhale the left leg down. Inner thighs come in. Exhale, slowly bring the left leg up. Good, bend the knees, bring the feet flat, open the arms wide like a T and just rock the legs from side to side, from right to left, just windshield wiper. The next time the knees fall over to your right, go ahead and fall all the way to the right, coming into a fetal position here. And then use your hands to slowly make your way up to vertical. From there, we're going to come into tabletop, friends. Bringing the hands right underneath the shoulders, knees underneath your hips. And then take an inhale, let the belly drop. Take your shoulders back, your heart forward. And then exhale, begin to round the back. Release the head. I'm gonna get inhale. Feel free to let your eyes close here. And even though we're warming up the back, see what it's like to take your attention to the legs. See if you can notice how the legs shift as you move from cat pose to cow pose. If you can notice in which shape do the legs turn out, and which shape do they turn in, like we just practiced. Maybe it's hard to tell the difference and you actually want to open the eyes and like take a gander, see what the thighs are doing. Take 2 more breaths, 2 more full rounds, both the inhale and the exhale. And then start to return yourself back into a neutral spine. And we're going to take some rotations in a full circle. So the hips will sink back towards child's pose, come to the left, forward, and right. You can let the head swing along with it, dropping towards the floor, lifting towards the sky. As you do this, you might find it really delightful to really press the hips to either side. The outer hips can often feel pretty tight. And then switch the direction of the circle. The elbows can bend, the heart can drop or lift. It's really kind of free range. For 3, for 2, and for 1. Come right back into the tabletop yet again. Take your block one more time and bring it into the inner thighs here. Give them a good hug, a good squeeze, right in tabletop. And then tuck your toes underneath. We're gonna lift into downward dog, into Badakanasana with the hips lifted. It can feel really nice to bend the knees a bit if you're feeling tight in the legs. And then take your gaze towards your block. So now we can really see the block. We're gonna do something pretty dramatic. But looking at the block and really grounding the balls of the feet into the floor, just like we did on the ground, start to turn the big toes in towards each other and let the heels rotate out. So internal rotation on purpose. Notice what that does to the block. It starts to slide the block back. And then try it the other way. So still grounding into the balls of the feet, but the toes turn slightly out and the heels turn slightly in. You notice the knees turn out too, and the block starts to slide forward. And then try it the other way again. So internally rotate the thighs, let the heels come out, and then externally rotate. Let the heels come in. Sweet. Now go back into solid down dog. So feet are parallel. Hold the feet parallel without moving the feet at all. Internally rotate the thighs. See if you can make the block slide back away from your face. Yes. There's a sense that you might feel of your sits bones spreading apart from each other. This is an energy that we're looking for in downward facing dog. Beautiful. If you can, bring your hands flat. If you're making an adjustment to protect your wrists, totally go for it. But here we are, sweet. With an exhale, bring the knees down onto the ground. Take a moment to shift the block out of your way, move it off to the side. Sit on your shins for a moment and just circle the wrists. So we were just on the wrist for a little while, and we are going back there. So give them a little bit of a break. Yeah. So sitting here in this kind of pseudo hero's pose, there's also this internal rotation thing going on. Okay. Shake that out, friends. And then let's return back into tabletop. In tabletop, tuck the toes. Already, we're going to move into downward dog, but see if you can start to feel already a sense of the thighs internally rotating. And then when you're ready, lift the hips and start to move back into downward facing dog. Parallel feet, gentle internal rotation of the thighs, high pelvis, long spine. Exhale, the heels towards the floor. With your next inhale, remember when we were on the ground, that separation of the legs. So sense the inner thighs hugging in, but slowly lift the right leg towards the sky. Internally rotate that right foot, keeping it parallel. As you exhale, bring your right foot forward to the front of the mat. Back knee comes to the earth, lift the arms, lunge. Legs are separate here, but to find a sense of containment, see if you can sense the inner thighs hugging in. This might actually pull you out of your lunge just a little bit, and that's sweet, right? That actually brings the hips into proper alignment, and then we can begin to open the front of the left thigh from there. So oftentimes I do this myself, we let everything go and we splay. So hug the inner thighs in. You can keep the arms lifted or you can rest them down onto the front thigh, whatever feels best for you. If the shoulders are feeling achy, opening up the arms can feel really nice. Gently lift the gaze on your next in-breath. And then exhale, both hands down to the floor. Step back into plank. Exhale, lower the knees, chest, and chin. Inhale, cobra or upward facing dog. Exhale, back, downward facing dog. Back into downward dog, feet about hips distance apart. That sends the inner thighs hugging in, gentle internal rotation. You might imagine that block in the inner thighs again, moving back away from your face. Inhale the left leg up into the sky. Three-legged dog. Exhale, bring the left foot forward to the front of your mat. Back knee comes down onto the earth. Raise the arms high. Lunge. Sometimes it can be helpful to really feel the dichotomy of two different shapes or the difference. So if you'd like, just let the hips go. Feel like that sense of no activation, no energy in my legs whatsoever. They're just hanging. And then start to slide the left hip back. Feel the inner thighs hug in towards the midline. Yeah, that often pulls us back a little bit, and it really begins to contain the hips and bring them into alignment. And then from there, you can let the front of the thigh open, maybe lift the arms and take the gaze forward. With your next inhale, take your gaze up towards the sky. And then exhale, bring both hands down onto the earth. Lift the back knee up and step back into plank yet again. Lower knees, chest, chin, or chaturanga if you prefer. Inhale, cobra or upward facing. And then exhale back, downward facing dog. Start to gently walk the down dog forward. So bring your feet forward towards your hands. And then hang out in Uttanasana just for a moment. So bring the feet hips distance apart and parallel. And then let the upper body hang over. Maybe offer a slight bend in the knees and a gentle sway in the upper body. Start to come back towards your center, resting the upper body over the thighs. Take the hands onto your chins, inhale, lift halfway. This is very similar to downward dog, so hold in this half lift. Feel your big toe and your big toe mound root into the floor. And without moving the feet at all, sense the inner thighs internally rotating. The sits bones spread apart. Exhale, fold over the legs. Let the head hang. Inhale, come all the way to stand. Arms will come overhead. Maybe take your gaze high as the palms come together. And then exhale, bring your arms down, mountain pose. Inhale, lift the arms high overhead. Exhale, fold over the legs. Inhale, lift halfway. Exhale, fold. Inhale your right leg back. Tap the back knee, look forward. You can always bring blocks if you need a little extra height for your hands here. And then exhale, downward facing dog. Feeling the internal rotation in the thighs. Inhale, come forward into plank. Squeezing towards the medial line, towards the middle. Exhale, knees, chest, chin, or chaturanga. Inhale, cobra or upward facing. Shoulders are down. Exhale, downward facing. Inhale the right leg forward. Tap your back knee, look forward, feel the collarbones widen here. Exhale, step forward, Uttanasana, hang over the legs. Inhale, lift halfway. Exhale, fold as the legs internally rotate. Dig the heels into the floor, stand, arms overhead, breathing in. Exhale, mountain. Second side, inhale, rise the arms. Exhale, fold over the legs. Inhale, half lift. Long spine, exhale, release over. Inhale the left leg back, tap the back knee, look forward. Exhale, down dog. Inhale, plank. Exhale, knees, chest, chin, or chaturanga. Inhale, cobra, feel the inner thighs squeezing towards each other. Exhale, downward dog. Inhale the left leg forward. Tap your back knee, gaze forward. Containing. Exhale, step forward, fold over the legs. Inhale, half lift. Exhale, fold. Inhale, stand, arms overhead. And exhale, mountain pose. Take a moment here, feel free to let the eyes close, or to just soften your gaze and feel your feet on the ground. A moment to recalibrate, a moment to reground before we re-engage with some movement and shapes. So I talked briefly about that focal point that we choose in meditation. So yoga really is a movement meditation, and in each shape and each moment of transition, just noticing where the attention is, or if we know where it is. So in this moment, maybe allowing the attention to really be curious about the feeling of the feet against your mat, against your floor, against the earth. Notice its pressure, its temperature. It's shifting and changing. With your next inhale, start to let your eyes blink open. Take the hands onto your hips and step the right leg far back behind you as if you were going into a lunge. But instead, send the heel to the ground. So we're moving into warrior one. And for warrior one, your feet absolutely don't need to be overlapping at all. So you can step the left foot out if a wider stance feels more supportive. And then first, send your back heel down into the earth. It may come to the ground, it may not, but energetically, that's the direction we're going in. And then once again, come into the awareness of the inner thighs here and start to slide them in towards each other. It's as if you were trying to like slide your legs together and like scoop the mat underneath you. It's so hard to do that and bend the front knee. It's like the mystery of warrior one. You know, we pull back a little bit, then we bend a little bit, then we pull back a little bit, we bend a little bit. And so we work inch by inch over time. So if you come out of the bend of the front knee, don't worry about it, right? We're working on it, we're getting there. So when you are ready, if you are ready, you're welcome to take the arms high overhead. And see if you can notice any sort of energetic difference between the legs, right? The foundation of this pose, the literal pillars that we're standing on. Notice in their containment, in that sort of conscious energetic action, what that does for the upper body. You can explore letting it go, releasing it, and then containing it again. It like shifts the alignment I'm noticing. Maybe that feels the same for you. Let's try Warrior Two. Open up to Warrior Two when you're ready. For Warrior Two, you might find it useful to walk your left foot in a little bit. So another kind of containment, bringing things a little closer together if that feels okay. Letting your back toes, your right toes, turn slightly inwards. So we feel that internal rotation here in that right thigh. And then as you're ready, opening the arms out wide, taking the gaze far over the left fingertips. With an exhale, send your weight down into both right and left feet. Holding that there, with an inhale, feel the inner thighs draw in. They're not going to move, they're not going to go anywhere, but notice how that starts to really activate all of the muscles of the legs. Hold that as you flip your front palm and take the left arm up and over. Exhale, cartwheel forward to side angle, bringing the forearm to your thigh or a hand to the block. Inhale, reversal warrior. Exhale, side angle pose. Steady and sturdy in the legs for one last inhale. And then an exhale, side angle and pause. Let the tailbone drop a smidge if it's not already. Then start to look towards the floor. Bring both of your hands down on either side of your left foot. You can spin the back heel up towards the sky. Palms down as you step back into plank. Bring the inner thighs together, big toes to touch. Take the right forearm down onto the ground. Take the left forearm down onto the ground. One long line from head to heel. Keep squeezing the inner thighs together and roll onto the right foot. Roll onto the right pinky toe side. And then maybe take your left hand to your hip. So coming into Badakanasana, but on the forearm. If it's feeling really shaky today, you can bring the left foot down on the ground in front of you. Otherwise, feel the inner thighs draw in towards each other and lift the hips high. For 4, 3, 2, 1. Start to look down at the mat. Return your left forearm down and then come all the way onto the belly. Point the toes, ground into the tops of the feet as you reach the heart forward for Sphinx pose. Yeah, so bring your forearms all the way forward. Exactly, solid. Draw the shoulders back with the heart high. You can kind of shimmy the hips a little bit. Start to slide your hands back underneath your shoulders. Tuck the toes, downward dog. Inhale the left leg to the front of the mat. Exhale the right leg to the front of the mat and fold over the legs. Inhale, half lift. Exhale, fold. Feeling sits bones spread as the legs turn in. Inhale, stand. Arms will come overhead. And exhale, mountain pose. Step the left leg back. Take the hands onto the hips for now. Then send the back heel to the floor. So coming into warrior 1 and the legs first. First, sending the left heel down. So deeply pressing through that heel. And then holding that as much as you can, start to hug the inner thighs in towards each other. You might feel the sense that the right hip is coming back. That's a great place to be. And then we noodle a little bit. So we kind of feel that sense of, okay, drawing, containing. And then re-engaging the bend of that front knee, and then drawing in and retaining. Slowly, slowly, inch by inch, over time, all the muscles in the hips and thighs start to open, allowing us to do both. When and if you're ready, feel free to let the arms rise high overhead. Take your gaze directly forward, out over your nose. We're going to explore, again, that feeling of containment in the legs and how it affects the upper body. Open into Badakanasana 2, Warrior 2. And then root the feet solid into the earth. That left foot really sending the pinky toe side down and the big toe side down. All four corners of both feet. Holding the feet steady. Feel as though you can slide your legs together. Flip your front palm up towards the sky. Take the right arm up and overhead as you breathe in. Exhale, side angle pose as you breathe out. Again, inhale, breathing in, legs stay steady. And exhale, breathe out. So there's a sense of slight internal rotation on the back leg, the left leg, and external through the front. So many different ways the inner thighs, our adductors are helping to contain, to hold us up. The next time you shift into side angle pose, pause. Start to look down at your front foot. And then bring both hands down on either side. Let the back heel spin up. And then step back into plank pose, but bring the inner thighs and the big toes to touch. Left forearm comes to the ground. Right forearm comes to the ground. Start to roll over towards your left. Come onto the pinky toe side of your left foot. Maybe send the right arm to the sky or onto your hip. For extra stability, step your right foot down in front of you. Otherwise, keep the inner thighs touching, rise the hips high. For 4, 3, 2, and 1. Start to look down and bring the right forearm down, return into the plank. Drop your knees onto the floor and then sit back into child's pose. You're welcome to let your knees open wide and then just hang the belly and the head down in between the legs. More kitties have joined. So brief story time. A few months ago, maybe a few weeks ago, went to a park just to kind of hang and lounge, and there was a father and his 2 children and their new German Shepherd puppy. And it was pretty clear that they were there to train the puppy. But if you've ever had or hung around puppies, they're easily distracted. And so I was like watching very curiously because they were trying with every effort. They had a spray bottle, they had treats. They were just trying to get this puppy to like sit down and like focus. But because it's a puppy, being in that environment, right, where there's other people, there's other dogs, there's cars driving by, it's just so much stimulation that the dog absolutely could not focus. That poor puppy did not stand a chance at focusing out there. It was just too excited about everything. And so it brings us back to, I like that story because that's often how I feel, particularly like in meditation or even sometimes in asana, if I have a lot going on. And so that idea of like really bringing our intention or a very intentional focus or point of concentration to the practice, it's like setting up our environment so that we have the best possible chance of creating the circumstances for concentration, for ease of the mind. That's kind of what we're doing with the body, right? It's not to contain forever so that we're kind of just like crunched into a small ball, right? But rather tapping into what environment, what external circumstances, what energy is best suited so that we can find ease and find peace and find freedom in the body, right? To begin to open and unfurl. So that said, we're gonna move into a little bit of balancing to find both containment and both freedom. So when you're ready, you might start to walk your hands back towards your legs. Maybe tuck your toes underneath. And then move yourself back so that you can stand on your feet. And then slowly roll your spine up. So send the heels to the floor, let the body hang over the legs. And slowly roll your spine up to standing. You can stay where you are, or if you feel more comfortable moving towards the front of your mat, you can do that as well. And bring the feet hips distance apart. Start to stand onto your left foot. And then when you're ready, we're gonna open the arms wide and lift the right leg out to the side. So thinking like big starfish shape. And then be clear about the energy of that right leg. I like to flex my foot, but maybe pointing feels better for you. So now we're using our abductors, moving the leg away. As you exhale, start to bring yourself into a small ball. So drawing yourself forward, hugging the inner thighs in, squeezing the arms in, and actually curling in as much as you can. Feel the inner thighs squeeze into each other. Feeling and continuing to feel the inner thighs in, start to send the right leg back as you shift into warrior three. The arms can unfurl behind you on either side of the body. And then we're going to do that again. As you exhale, everything comes into a little ball. Hug that right knee in, bring the arms in, and then inhale starfish, slowly unfurling. Feel the heart open. Feel the heart extend through the fingertips. Exhale, bring it in. That standing leg, you might feel some sensation. Maybe the head can drop here too as you inhale to lengthen back into warrior three. One last time, exhale, bring everything in. Maintain, get as small as you can, and then inhale, stretch it wide. Ooh. Exhale, Tadasana. If you need to, you can shake out that standing leg. Give it a little wiggle jiggle. Take our second side, friends. So rooting down into the right foot. Start to slowly shift over to the right. Left leg opens, arms reach wide and out. Big starfish energy. Just notice what this is first. As you exhale, everything contracts in. Inner thighs come together, head drops, arms squeeze in. As you're ready, warrior three, send the left leg back. Lengthen your right leg, arms by your sides. Exhale, come in. Maybe the head drops and looks back at your left toes. Inhale, starfish. Exhale. Everything draws in towards the center line, towards the belly. And warrior three. Reach that left leg back. Last time, exhale, draw everything in. Inhale, stretch it out. Exhale, stand. Release the arms. If you need to, shake out that right leg. Shake out the hips a little bit too. Okay. Excuse me. Sorry about that, y'all. Step to the front of your mat. And then take this right foot, step it wide out, rotate all 10 toes, face the right side of your mat. So moving into Prasarita Batatanasana. Allow your toes to rotate in so that they're parallel. They can even turn slightly inwards. So we're not looking for a crazy, insane internal rotation, but if the heels want to move out just a smidge, that's fine. Take the hands onto your hips. And then before we fold forward, feel all four corners of your feet. So big toe mound, pinky toe mound, and then both the inner and outer edges of your heel. Press into the floor. See if there's a way to do that evenly. It could take a little bit of time, a little bit of exploration, and noticing what it's like to really come to the outsides of the feet, come to the insides of the feet, feeling the toes spread. And then without moving your feet, again, imagine the inner thigh squeezing in. From here, let the knees bend slightly, start to tilt the body forward right at the waist. And we're gonna come all the way into a forward fold. You can release your hands to the ground. If you have your blocks and you'd like to use them and that feels helpful, you can bring your blocks underneath your hands as well. And we're just gonna hang here. Feeling that internal rotation of the thighs and the spreading of the legs. So lots of actions all at once. It kind of has the quality of like polyrhythmic music, right? There's all of these different directions that the body is moving in. So there's lots of activity happening in the legs. Notice if you kind of just release into the legs. Let them be a little contained and see if it allows the upper body to find a little bit more ease. If it's available to you here and you'd like to take headstand, you're welcome to do that. We'll be here for a couple more breaths. By a couple, I mean several. Really just letting the body find a good hang. If headstand is not something you practice regularly, I would not advise it. Taking about 5 more breaths where you are, especially if you're upside down. If you're upside down, come down. You can join us on your own timing. So if you're folded over in Prasarita Batatanasana, bring your hands down underneath you again and just lengthen the elbows so that your spine lifts a bit. And you can come onto your fingertips too if that's helpful. And then just let your heels come in a lot so that you now have external rotation in the legs. Walk your hands on the tops of your thighs and let the knees bend. So a good old wide second position for anyone who's a dancer person. If it's available to you, right, we all have different lengths of arms, bring your hands closer to your knees, straighten your elbows, and let your shoulders shrug. So this is a really sweet way to like feel the legs and the inner thighs open without having to use them so much. So just by the nature of the length of the arms, it's just opening. You can gently rock from side to side. Yeah, elbows is another really sweet way too. If you want to bring your elbows down. Same. Good space to be in. And then I want to invite folks to maybe explore a little Skandasana. So in the same position, you might shift far over to your right foot and then start to extend the left leg out. The left foot will flex so that the heel comes to the floor, but the toes lift up. And then imagine the legs like a book now. So all of this like bringing together is like the opposite. Now feel that right thigh, that right knee open up wide. So we're now lengthening and finding a stretch in the inner thigh here. Stretching the inner thigh muscles, the adductors. And then let's invite a little bit of movement to it too. So staying as low as you can in the hips, we'll start to shift over to the left side. That left knee will bend a lot. The right leg will extend. Again, this is totally optional. This can be a lot for folks if your hips are super duper tight. So you're welcome to stay in that wide-legged stance where we were before. And then you can shift on your own timing. Maybe it feels really good to just rest in one place for a long time. Or maybe the movement of it is really inviting for you. Just a couple more moments here. Exploring in any way that feels good. Awesome. The next time you're coming through center, go ahead and plant both of your feet. We're going to return back into Prasarita. So rotate your toes so that they're parallel and face forward towards the right side of your mat. Your hands are underneath you still so that your spine is up about halfway. Maybe the knees need to bend a bit. And then root into the legs. Stay folded over halfway, but bring your hands to your hips. And then as you ground into the legs, rise the spine all the way up to vertical. Woo! Take the hands to your low back. Feel the elbows squeeze together behind you. Send your tailbone down so that the front of the hips lengthen. And just take a baby back bend. Feel your heart lift up and over. The hips might press forward a little bit. Maybe the gaze goes up towards the sky. And then inhale yourself back to vertical. Tiptoe the feet slightly in towards each other. Big step. Right foot comes to the front of your mat, Tadasana. Hands by your sides. Let's go ahead and sit down onto the earth. So I'm going to sit on top of the folded blanket just to kind of give my hamstrings a little bit of extra length and help. And we're going to continue now with opening all of this space that we just also experienced contained. So it's a beautiful way to balance it out. Let's take a straddle stretch. Let me shift myself over. So you can open both of your legs. It doesn't have to be the world's widest straddle by any means. Even just any degree of opening is really beautiful. And then flex both of your feet without lifting your heels off of the ground. Allow the toes to be directed up or even a little externally rotated. Especially as we're start to fold forward, oftentimes as we come forward, the legs want to follow suit. Notice if that happens, take a pause, re-engage. So that's that like book opening. When you're ready, you can start to fold forward any amount. Maybe it's like very small. Yeah, blocks are a really sweet thing to have. When you start to get to a place where the back is rounding more than it is lengthening, that's a good place to know to stop. And then maybe you can bring the blocks underneath your forehead. so that they have something to rest on. And then just like in the beginning with Supta Badakanasana, we just take some time, some space, some deep breaths to allow the upper body to fold its way forward. One way to think of the movement of the spine here and the length of the back is reaching your belly button towards the floor. How can we energetically send the belly button towards the ground? If you notice the belly button curling away from the ground, that's a good indicator. Maybe come up a little bit. We're going to hold here for just another minute or so. Very slowly start to bring your hands back underneath you and guide the upper body to be upright. Take a hold of that right leg and swing it in. Take a hold of that left leg and swing it in. Give them a little, actually, yeah, if you want to lean back a little bit and just windshield wiper the legs, that can feel really nice. Mm-hmm. All right, thank you, legs, for all of your hard work. Let's do just one little quick forward fold with the legs contained. So straighten the legs out in front of you. You can stay seated on your support. And then internally rotate the thighs a smidge here. Yeah, the legs come relatively close together. Same thing. Nice long spine, little tilt in the pelvis back. And then just gently walk yourself forward any amount. Flex the feet a lot. So that active flexion of the feet with the heel extended and the toes drawing back, that's going to engage a really beautiful stretch through the calves. You can just let your head hang if you like. Feel gravity gently pull you down. And inhale, come all the way back up. And then come into a comfortable seated position. So that might look like that unfurling, the opening of the thighs that continues to stretch the adductor muscles. Or you're also going to take hero's pose or virasana. I definitely need to sit on a thing. I sit on the block on the medium height. You come to sit on your shins and you very much internally rotate the inner thighs. The feet open wide so that you can sit in between them. Yeah. I don't know about you all, but after this practice, it feels so much easier to sit in Virasana right now than it usually does, which is interesting and fascinating. So before we go into Shavasana, I actually want to invite us into a meditation, a sound meditation. So I have a bell here. And I want to bring us back to that idea again of containment, right? And all of the different ways that we experience it. And I hold pretty firm to the understanding that our asana practice is really so that we can sit in meditation for long periods of time. It's to get the body acclimated and open enough to movement, to stretching, that we can like sit in a posture and be in meditation. And so for the next 2 minutes, I'm going to invite us into a sound meditation, and I'm going to ring the bell. I invite you to close your eyes or really soften your gaze and to let the hearing sense come into the forefront. And just see what it's like to use the sound of the bell as your focal point, as your anchor in meditation. To notice not only the beginning of sound, but also its full duration, and also the end of the sound. And I'll move a little bit closer so that we can make sure that the sound is really audible. And we'll take this together. Just letting your breath and body be easy and hearing the sound of the bell. If at all possible, allowing for as much ease as you can manage as we slowly shift from Tadasana or whatever seated posture you may be in towards Shavasana. If using sound as the focal point for your awareness felt really helpful, I invite you to continue to do so. To notice the sounds in the space that you're located in. Notice them as they come. Noticing them throughout their entire duration, and also noticing when they leave. Or perhaps sensations in the body are feeling most prominent. And just like sound, I invite you to notice sensation as it arises. And to also notice when it disappears or when it changes or transforms. And if there's another anchor that suits you more so, like the breath or maybe mantra or anything else, then I invite you to do that. But to explore the idea of really knowing where you're resting your attention the next few minutes. As we come towards the close of class, you might choose to stay exactly as you are. If you have the time and space, feel free to do so. Feel free to disregard any further instructions or rest for a while longer. Even beyond the close of class, you don't have to worry about turning your camera off on the close out the space. Of course, if you are needing to move on to the next aspect of your day on this say afternoon or morning, then you're welcome to also start that process by maybe taking a couple of big deep breaths or stretching the arms above the head, wiggling out the lips. And then eventually rolling your way over onto either the left or the right side, taking a pause in a fetal position there. Letting the knees hug it towards the head and the chin drop down towards the chest. And when you're ready, making your way up, finding another comfortable seated position, one that feels easy in the body in this moment, but perhaps also with a sense of alertness to it. And take a moment to find your breath again. Maybe the breath becomes the anchor. And to take a couple of breaths into the body to breathe deep, to bring in some fresh oxygen, to nourish the muscles, the blood, the bones. and offer some honor and gratitude to this body of yours, to this vessel, however complicated our relationships to them may be. Thank you for being here and for arriving this morning. Thank you for all of the wisdom that you hold, both known and unknown, or noticed or unknown. Thank you, body, for all of your efforts, the ways that you support me, consciously or unconsciously. Honor and gratitude to everyone that shared this practice space with us this morning. Thank you for being here and sharing in our experience, this collective space that we've created. And expanding a little bit wider to all people, all beings, seen and unseen, known and unknown, that have in some way, shape, or form made it possible for us to practice here together, from the administrative team at Third Root to stewards of this wisdom tradition. We thank you and thank you. Let's close our practice together again with the sound of one Om. You're welcome to bring your hands together in Anjali Mudra at the heart, or just keep them resting on your legs. When you're ready, let all the breath go from the body. Take a deep breath in. Thank you all for being here today. It was beautiful to see you and practice with you. And I pray that your Wednesdays and the rest of your weeks are beautiful. Thanks, friends. Relay, thanks you too. Bye. Thanks for joining. See you later, everybody.